welcome back. I've got Richard Gunderson on the line. Richard, how are you?
I am great. Wonderful day.
It is. It is. Always love talking with you and really looking forward to this conversation. So, why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll dive into this conversation?
Oh, great. My career started in engineering. Um, got my degree from the University of Minnesota, and it had a really a wonderful start. And my satisfaction in the early years really came from the work I did in designing new products. I loved having people come to me saying, "I need something that'll do this, this, and this," and I had the creativity to create that from nothing, and that was a real pleasure. But in years went by, and I got more into management in the people business. And I get a lot of satisfaction from helping people succeed in what they're doing. And what else can you say? The challenges I see that people face are where they're not really addressing the needs of other people, and I try to help them get over that barrier.
It's important work that you're doing and have done because, and we've talked about this before, where it just seems like a lot of organizations are having a lot of difficulty finding the right people, and there's people that are having difficulty finding the organizations that are right for them. And the pieces are there. It's just a case of, in a way, matchmaking, but sometimes it's not easy to get the all the parties to kind of flush out what they really need. I've seen so many different job descriptions over my life and career, and some of them are really detailed and they tell you pretty much everything you'd ever need to know about the organization and the role, and some of them you have to be a forensic scientist to figure out, okay, what would I actually be doing at this company. So it's definitely an art and a science when it comes to flushing those things out, but ultimately finding those people that are going to be the right fit, in both ways. It's not a one-sided adventure. It takes two to tango, and it's important to find the right mix of people that complement your business and help your customers and also the staff as well.
You make an excellent point. My business today is focused on helping small business owners deal with some of the people issues in their business. But I've really benefited from the fact that over the last 6 years, I've done a lot of training and coaching of professionals, people that are looking for salaried positions. And they are stymied by the fact that they're having a trouble finding that right job. But I also have learned from training them and in coaching them that they struggle in finding the right fit when they're talking to potential employers. And I see the problems that employers are having in attracting the right people. And I think in many cases, the employer is creating their own problem. You mentioned job descriptions. It's interesting that when I look at the job descriptions that many job seekers are looking at, um, they're turned off by them. And I think in many cases, the employer doesn't know quite how to write a good job description. It would seem like it would be the natural thing to do, should be easy to do, but it isn't. And the other thing that's interesting about it is people react differently to certain job descriptions. It's interesting that some job descriptions, the employer has put everything, including the kitchen sink, into the job description. And it's not just that it's lengthy, but they have thrown every possibility that this applicant might deal with in the course of their career. And they don't need to hear all that stuff. There's some primary things they need to be able to do. The job descriptions ought to address that. But some of the best candidates for the job turn away from the opportunity because they're turned off by the job description. So that's one of the things that I help employers with, is how to write a good job description that puts the message across without including too much information.
Yeah, you overwhelm them and they look at it and they may misinterpret it. And it may not be the case for the organization at all, but you see everything there. They think, okay, I will be micromanaged till the sun sets and I won't have any autonomy to have any input because they've pretty much mapped everything out how they want it done. They don't want an employee, they want a robot. And yeah, I could see where a lot of people would be scared off by that. And again, the organization may not be that way at all, but the way they wrote the post, it definitely looks like it could be a situation like that. And other ones that are too vague, you're like, okay, it looks like you've got some autonomy, and you get in there and they won't let you do anything outside of the box. So it really helps to, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. If an organization wants things to be strict, coherent, whatever you want to call it, just let people know. And there's a way to word it so people understand. So there's no guessing game because, I've seen posts, when I was looking for work and I looked at that and I was like, absolutely not. I said, I would hate that place from top to down. Now, I could be completely misinterpreting it, but the way it was written, I'm like, oh, that doesn't make me feel good. And I'm sure there's probably opportunities where I would have been a really good fit for the organization. It would have been a good place for me, but not based on the job profile or the description. So you're spot on with that. What are some other things you're seeing right now that are really being a challenge for both employees and employers?
Well, I think on the employer's end, particularly since 2021, people have been real concerned about the turnover issue. And I have been studying the statistics in this job market for the last 5, 6 years. And I recognized in 2021 that this was not a unique problem. In fact, the data that I've been looking at shows that since at least 2017, if not before that, we're seeing at least 1 in 4 employees in this country that are voluntarily quitting their job. And that's been every year since 2017. So there's a problem there. And I'm concerned about that problem because this economy and employers need to do better in terms of hanging on to their people, creating a culture, an environment, relationships that make an individual want to be there. So if you take a look at turnover by itself, surveys have shown that the majority of the reasons for turnover is that the wrong employees were hired to begin with. It's not that the employees were bad; it was just the wrong fit. But bad hiring decisions have led to the majority of our turnover problem. And then if we back up one step before that, we've got a major employee engagement problem in this country, where if you look at the number of people that are actively engaged in the job, they want the employer to succeed in what they're doing. They want to succeed in what they're doing. They want to feel good about it. The number's only about 1/3 of our employees are actively engaged in the business. That needs to change. That's really hurting productivity. And if you're hurting productivity, you're hurting profit and cash flow as well.
The productivity, the quality, and I'm sure you've noticed it. I've noticed it too on a lot of different things. The quality isn't what it was. And like, why is this being a problem now? But when you have 1 out of 4 leaving, the other 3 that stuck around are getting tired of the turnstile of, ever-changing team members. So it's causing a lot of continuity issues because when you're training people, and this, it takes a long time for them to get fully on board and in the flow of things. And the higher up you go in the rankings, the longer it takes. And it's just disruptive for everyone involved. And it's, much like when you have customers, it's better to retain your customers than to get new ones. Not knocking getting new customers. That's great. It's always good. But if you retain the customers you have they'll stick around, they're good, they're loyal. And yeah, I agree, the employee engagement has been a huge challenge. And It's because people are people. They wanna have a say. It doesn't mean that they need to call all the shots, but they should at least have input in there. And healthy organizations create that as part of the DNA of the organization because the people doing the work, they're the ones seeing what's working. They're the ones seeing that's not working, and then they can make suggestions on how to make things better. And every organization that I was ever a part of where I was in a leadership role, I made sure that there were avenues set up for people to provide input without judgment or condemnation or being made fun of. So the crazier the idea, the better. It's like let's see, that might be something that's a breakthrough for us, and you really grow the organization because again, they're doing the work, they're seeing what's working, they're seeing the challenges, and if we can make life easier for them so they can accomplish more in less time, that doesn't mean, okay, good, we got capacity to add more on them. No, it, too many organizations, and I'd love to hear your thought on this. We don't allow our people enough time for basically staring at the wall for a few minutes, reflecting. How could I do this better? Or what would be a great product to market that would go well with this? We don't allow people to do that. It's just, output, 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 and, no time to reflect for innovation. And that's making organizations stagnant. And that's why you're going to see so many organizations that are here today may not be here in the next decade just because they're just not doing things right. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. I can recall back to my days, days in my career. I've always when I'm working, I felt comfortable in getting up and getting away from the work for a little while, going down the hallway to pick up a snack or get a soft drink or whatever, and meet people in the hallway and have some hallway discussions. And management was comfortable with us doing that. But in so many cases nowadays, that managers want them at the desk producing all the time. That's not healthy, and that's where we get into problems where people are just burning out on the job. And many supervisors and managers are burning out as well. In fact, the numbers say that in the past couple of years, the burnout problem is more a problem with managers than it is even with the employees, but it's showing up in both places.
Yeah, I'm seeing those stats too, and it doesn't really matter what industry it is. It's across the board, and it's alarming and concerning for me because having worked in healthcare for over a decade, we know that mental stress is a huge component of a lot of visits to the doctor's office, or even worst case scenarios, the emergency room. And there's over 2 dozen chronic diseases that stress is a component of it. And if you have prolonged stress, you're inviting your body to basically say, yeah, I want to get type 2 diabetes, or I want to have, heart disease, or, chronic inflammation, or all these other things that are really taxing on you. So if you're already stressed and all of a sudden your body starts giving out on you, well, guess what? You're stressed over that as well. What do you think that's going to do to your performance at work? It's going to impact it, and you're going to be negative about that. And it just starts piling on, and it gets worse and worse to the point where somebody that used to be a great employee, loved their job, all of a sudden now they don't, even though the job itself really hasn't changed and their workloads haven't increased dramatically. Their temperature towards, and the opinion of what they have about their work and stuff changes just because of all the negativity that they've got going on. And I see that time and time and time again. And again, it's concerning because that impacts the products and services that we all consume, which means it's really problematic. And I think as a society, we need to demand more. We need to demand more of companies to take care of their employees, but we also have to make sure that their employees are taking care of themselves as well. It's not just a singular point the finger at one party situation. It's across the board. And we all have skin in this game, and taking care of yourself and communicating and creating environments where people can thrive will make for healthier companies, which of course benefits society.
believe that executives in some companies have done really well at working on the culture of the company. Creating a workplace community where people want to be there, they want to participate, they want to feel comfortable in that environment. And when you don't do that, you create this turnover problem. And a lot of businesses, they're really focusing on the finances. Well, if you're really concerned about financials, think about it, what it's costing you to lose one of these employees that have been trained, they've developed, they're really capable of producing. What does it cost to replace them? The numbers would say um, the cost to replace one of those employees is at least half the annual salary of the employee, and it could go up to even double that person's annual salary. So if you take the average salaried person in this country, they make about $60,000. So to replace that person is going to cost anywhere between $30,000 and $120,000. Now, that's hurting productivity, that's hurting profit, that's expensive. So if you really care about the financials, you need to care about the people because the people are producing the results and we need those better people to want to stay within the company.
Having worked at a executive search firm many, many years ago, I know, it's like, especially if you get higher up, a lot of organizations use search firms. And there's a pretty hefty percentage of that salary that is, paid to the search firm to find those candidates. So, and again, the higher up you go, the longer it takes. So it means the productivity, the output, and all that get impacted by bringing in somebody new. If you keep people, then your productivity will improve over time if you create that right environment for them. And, again, I'm a big fan of asking your people, okay, what's going on? And not just, from a managerial, what's going on type of situation, but no, literally, it's like, let's talk. We get away from this, org chart kind of format in a way, but just have a human to human conversation. What are you seeing? What do you think would make sense? And, organizations that create those environments where people can just freely communicate saying, yeah, it seems like this latest update or this latest version of whatever, or this supply that we're getting from the new supplier doesn't seem to be holding up as well as the last one. And we're concerned that, we could be running into some recall, excuse me, issues down the road. What should we do about it? If the people don't feel safe about that, they're not going to say anything. And then you're going to get 6 months or a year down the road and realize, okay, we're going to have to replace 10,000 of these parts because they were faulty. And the employees knew about it, but they didn't say anything because they didn't feel it was a safe environment to comment. Well, there's a cost right there that you weren't anticipating. And that's just a singular example. There's so many different things to go on in companies where if you don't have an environment where people have a safe place to communicate without condemnation or upsetting management and whatnot, then you're going to run into these issues. And people don't like working in those types of environments. So what are they going to do? They're going to leave. And it becomes toxic, and you just start having a turnstile, and the organization, more or less ignores it because, again, they say, oh, it's not impacting the bottom line. Yes, it is. It is. How much are you costing, for productivity and all that? And I think the better we do as a society to identify the cost and really, hard fact costs of what this is costing. And you did that as far as the ratio of, 30,000 to 120,000 annual on a $60,000 role. That's a significant cost. It's like, okay, what do we do? How do we capture that? How do we recover from that? Well, more sales. Well, you're not going to have more sales because you keep replacing people. They're not going to be able to increase the output. So if you focus on the bottom line, but focus on the expenses and doing your best job to minimize those unnecessary costs, like constantly replacing people, you're going to see a lot of positives from that.
Yeah, I agree. as I mentioned earlier, my focus is primarily on the human side of the business. And I look at the total cycle all the way from the recruiting on the front end. We've got to attract the quality people, bring them into a hiring process that they're comfortable with. It bothers me when I hear about companies that put their employees through 7 levels of interviews before a final decision is made. Wow, what a turnoff that is. And some of the better people leave. We need to do a better job of assessing the candidates we've got and picking the quality people. Too often, personal biases enter into the decision, and we're picking the wrong people too often in terms of bringing them into the job. Then we have a similar issue when it comes to the selection of our managers. Many people that might like to be a manager aren't good candidates to be a manager. We've got to do a better job of selecting people that are really able to deal with the spectrum, the cross section of people that they have to manage. People from different experiences, different skills, different priorities, different, a lot of differences. And a manager needs to be able to effectively care for those people, listen to those people, talk to those people, encourage those people to the point where they want to be a part of this organization. So we've got that issue at a management level. And then when we take it to when a business is in its early stages and just beginning to emerge, where we're starting to add employees, we've got revenue coming in. Often there's a need for some support, because the fact of the matter is that a manager doesn't have expertise in all areas. They don't have all the answers. But they've got a real big cross section of issues that they're dealing with. So one of the things that I try to do is, as a small business consultant, is not go in and tell them I've got a solution, because I don't know what their problem is. Too often, executives and managers don't know what the problem is. They may know there's a problem, but they're not sure what it is. So what I've been offering more recently is to go in and do an assessment. Let's figure out where the problem really is and where the opportunities are for some significant improvements. And then you can go from there and making a decision of where you're going to put your time and money to fix those problems. And across that whole section, from recruiting to turnover in the back end, there's 6-figure numbers associated with potential improvements that could happen all through that process. So it's costing, and it's just, we need to address those people issues more effectively, and productivity, profit and cash flow will respond.
Yeah, it's important work you do. That's why I wanted you to have on the show. So, Richard, love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
You can reach me at richard@careerjobtransition.com. I also have a website, careerjobtransition.com, and a newer website, which is reachbetterresults.com. And got information in there, and my contact information as well.
Awesome. So I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So Richard, always love talking with you and really appreciate this amazing work and insights that you're providing us today. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, I thank you, Michael. This has been a pleasure.